Okay. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the South Kingstown Town Council. This is our work session. Unfortunately, we're having some technical difficulties, and we've already got some strange circumstances without any audience to participate here with us. We do have teleconference ability, so people are allowed to call in through the number that was advertised on our clerk-based website. I do not believe we are being streamed on cable tonight, unfortunately. The cable access company is closed down, so I apologize to people out there who might be trying to access us that way. Please do try and find us online via the live stream. All right, Rob, do you have...
So I guess the first set of things we have to sort of work through is how we're going to manage a meeting involving two public hearings and a public opportunity to comment on the entire agenda without the public in the room. We have got folks potentially on the telephone, and what we're going to ask folks to do is, if you would like to comment at public comment period or at a public hearing, that you send an email to townhall@southkingstownri.com. We'll put you in a queue, and when your name comes up, we'll let the chairman have that list, and he can call you by name as you get into the queue. So if you would like to comment during public comment period, and we'll have to repeat this at the beginning of the regular session, we'd suggest that you email us at the town hall email address, and that we get your name in that email. You're going to have to tell us who you are so that you can be called on to comment. When we get to public comment period or the public hearings, not everyone will have done that. Some folks may not have email available to them. So I would suggest that the chair also, after going through the names of the people who've emailed their request to comment in, that we ask for anyone on the phone who would like to comment on the public hearing or during the public comment period. And I would suggest that we do that alphabetically, just because we're going to have to chunk folks so that they're not all trying to chime in on the one phone line simultaneously. So what I would suggest is that you go, if anyone with the last name starting with A through G would like to comment, please let me know now. You'll get maybe some chatter that way, but it won't be 50 people simultaneously. We'll see how that works. All of this is being recorded on our stream, from our stream, so there will be copies of the meeting tonight available to the public after this meeting, even though it's not being broadcast on cable access. Similarly, the phone line is being recorded, so anyone who's not on mute, know that you're being recorded, and if there's background noise and you're not on mute, that's going to become part of the public record.
All right. Interesting times. So why don't we get started with the nitty-gritty of the work session and go through the agenda, Rob?
So you've got two public hearings tonight. The first public hearing is on a liquor license request from Uptown Burger, doing business as Rachel's Cafe. The applicant has been notified of their right to comment via the teleconference line. And Susan, do we know whether we had confirmation that they'd be doing so? Okay. And then the second public hearing is the public hearing to change the date on the unruly gatherings ordinance to June 1st, 2020. We're sort of locked into this sequence because of the fact that we had published it. No harm, no foul to actually change the date, so this should not be a controversial one. I don't expect anyone is going to be all that excited about commenting on merely changing the date and giving the council some more time to come to a permanent solution on noise regulation. So I think this is a fairly non-controversial issue at this point. We have a number of communications that are here. We've got a request from Liz Gledhill regarding Playtime at the Polls. As you know, Playtime at the Polls is a program that a number of groups have been trying to get put in place around the state. It would allow for women of child rearing age and grandparents and fathers to come to the polls with their kids and make sure that they're safe while they engage either in the activities of voting or participating as poll workers or even participating with just sort of encouraging folks to vote outside of the polling place. We had been looking into whether or not the town has any authority here, the town council has any authority here to supersede a decision that was made by the Board of Canvassers. I don't know if we've actually got an answer on that question, but to date, there's nothing that I've seen that would indicate that we as a town or you as a town council have got the authority to intervene here in a way that would supersede the decision by the Board of Canvassers to exclude them from the polling place. That leaves open the possibility of being beyond or outside of the polling place and doing something to assist with daycare, but we don't have a mechanism in place to do that. We don't have somebody who would be a volunteer running a play while the polls are going on as opposed to at the polling place. We have a resolution from the town council in Charlestown in support of legislation pending in the General Assembly to deal with the beach trespass issue, which was the subject of the Keeley case last year, and a resolution adopted by the town council in Charlestown to establish a climate adoption and resilience fund. Those are both available to the council. If you've got any questions, either Mike or I can sort of muddle through some answers on those. We've got a letter from Dave Palizzetti concerning the proposed school facilities plan. This is Mr. Palizzetti's expression of concern that the proposal to develop the Curtis Corner area as the new site of a high school would impact recreation facilities, and requesting that the Recreation Commission be involved more formally than they have been to date. It would be appropriate to send that to either staff or to the school building committee or to the school committee to figure out how to get them more formally engaged. I do know that based on the site investigation that's been done by RGB's engineer, there is going to be some interference with the recreation facilities, and in fact, the topography of the site may not allow for the plan that was originally sort of drawn on the map. They may have to move the parking lot from where it is because of the existence of ledge, and that would actually free up one of the concerns or would naturally resolve one of the concerns that the recreation community has expressed.
Rob, does that change? Where would the parking be then?
They haven't identified a new location yet. I sent a letter to RGB probably a week and a half ago now identifying that issue and asking that they let us know where they would put a parking lot as soon as they can.
Thank you.
You have another letter on the school facilities program. You have a letter of resignation from Patricia Breslin. She's tendered her resignation from the Housing Authority. And a second letter of resignation from a housing commissioner, Maureen Egan, has conveyed her resignation as well. Both of those were previously effective. Ms. Breslin's was effective on the date it was tendered, March 11th, and Maureen Egan's was effective last Thursday at 4 o'clock.
Rob, we had asked the Housing Authority for a report on their intentions going forward. Able to meet?
The Housing Authority met on this telephone line just an hour ago. I haven't gotten a report back from them. And really, those are the correspondence that I think are going to be of interest to the council and members of the community.
Have we heard if any of those folks who sent those communications are intending on calling in?
We've not had any specific communication with anybody who's on the correspondence list. I think it probably is appropriate to ask when we get through to each one of those whether the author is online.
And then, Rob, I just have a question on the correspondence R from Gene Lowell regarding the emergency shelter.
Mm-hmm.
If Curtis Corner is the new site of the high school, have we addressed any of his concerns?
So the concern is one that's been identified previously. We do know that it is currently an emergency shelter at the Columbia Street High School location. Whether something has to be done to accommodate an emergency shelter at the new location if the high school were relocated to Curtis Corner, or some other building in the town inventory needs to be designated that emergency shelter, has not been determined. It's a valid point. It is a point that we're concerned with, and obviously we don't want to go without any emergency shelter. We have to identify a means of accommodating large groups of people if an emergency were to occur. So we'd have to work through that. But to answer your question, the short answer is no, we don't know where that location would be at this point. And, the conditions are things like the existence of a generator. We've got to have a generator at the emergency shelter. It's really just making sure that the facility that we identify, perhaps, and we're not there, we haven't come to any conclusions, the rec center is large enough, but the rec center doesn't have a generator. So, if the only issue is getting a generator for the rec center, then that's a relatively easy problem to solve. If it's more difficult because parking is inadequate, or any number of other conditions, then it may not be as easy to address. We've got a couple of very small, well, one not so small contract for $203,000, but that contract is funding from the Wastewater Enterprise Fund, and it's work that just needs to continue. This is a, if I'm not mistaken, an extension of an existing contract. I'm not looking at the memorandum, and I've already lost track of this contract in my head. So, and then the other small contract is the purchase of a truck for wastewater and the parks. So there is a instead of taking the trade-in on a vehicle, we're just going to give an allowance to the wastewater department and retain the vehicles. So we're not trading in this case, because we have a municipal use that we can still make of it. And then finally, we've got the resolution on the preliminary adoption of the budget. Our recommendation at this point is that we not make any changes to the preliminary budget. We're obviously in a very, very different environment than we were on March 1st, March 2nd, when the budget was submitted. But we don't know where we're going to be 3 weeks from now, where we're going to be on April 27th. The governor has not made any changes to her revenue projections. We haven't seen any changes to the state budget. We know that we're going to have to make changes. This is not going to be a typical budget year where you can proceed from the preliminary budget through the hearings and to a final adoption without any changes. I strongly suspect, and in fact, Zach and I would like to present to you a view of where we are at the first public hearing for this budget on April 15th and give you a sense, after we've had a chance to digest sort of what the feds are saying, what the state's saying, where we think we're going to be. This is a big economic impact. There's absolutely no doubt about it. This is going to affect many sectors of the economy. It's going to affect the nation. It's going to affect the state. It's going to impact people here in South Kingstown. It's going to affect people's ability to pay taxes at the high end of the income level. It's going to affect people's ability to pay at the low end of the income level. This is going to be a very difficult situation. A recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters without economic growth, negative economic growth. A depression is 2 years without growth. This is a big enough shock that either one of those things is possible. And we're going to have to take the time that we've got between now and the scheduled adoption of this budget to figure out as best we can what this all means for us going forward. The governor is scheduled to make some assertions about budget schedules and municipal finance tomorrow. We haven't received any guidance from the state on this as of yet, despite having asked. They've got a lot of things on their plate. I think that we've got to just proceed. The charter requires that the budget be adopted, the preliminary budget be adopted, again, preliminarily be adopted on the 22nd of March, unless the 22nd falls on a Sunday, in which case the 23rd. So in order to comply with our charter, today's the last day for us to take action on the preliminary budget. This doesn't lock us in. Taking it as it is does not lock us into keeping a 2% property tax transfer, keeping the tax rate as has been proposed. It doesn't lock us into any of these things. You've got the public hearings that are scheduled for April 15th and April 16th. You potentially have petitions that will be coming from the public, and you have the opportunity on the 27th of April to make any and all changes you deem appropriate. So our recommendation is, let's not make this complicated. Let's do this tonight as a preliminary adoption. Let's gather all the information that we can over the next couple of weeks and arm ourselves for whatever redesign or rebuild has to be done.
Rob, I've been thinking a lot about this because we've had a lot of time to think, not working or trying to figure out how to kill time, and also trying to make sure that we're doing right for what's the best, in our opinions, for the community. And part of me feels that if we don't do something, if we just let it ride the way it's supposed to ride, it could send the wrong message. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are very nervous in our community, concerned, from someone that, a restaurant worker to, I was speaking to an attorney today on the phone, they're closed.
Right.
It's unfortunate that we're in this situation, but I think not doing anything at all at this point might not be the best direction, in my opinion.
So I can appreciate that. I've just gotten a note from our moderator. Kayla Gray is moderating the call for us. She's asking us all to speak into the mics a little more because we're using the ambient sound from the room system to get to the speakers. So speak closely to the mic. Yes, I'm very sympathetic to the fact that the world has changed in a very dramatic way to everybody who lives in town. Everyone is impacted here. This is a big deal, and I'm not suggesting that we let it ride because this is not a big deal. I'm saying we need to hunker down and figure out what the right move is. If we were to cut, for example, if we were to cut school funding and then find that that's where the federal aid is coming to, we may have just done ourselves undue harm. If we're not making the expenditures that are going to be the situs of federal relief or state relief, we will have done the wrong thing. We need to gather as much information as we can before making any decisions about what to do next. Our next step, even if we think we're avoiding a pitfall, may be into a hole that we don't see. We need to be very careful about taking any action that commits us. The preliminary adoption is not a commitment, particularly if we reinforce that in our sense of what it is. If the council recognizes that this is a necessary step, but is not a promise to everyone, this is just our taking a necessary step to get through the budget process, then it isn't a commitment. It isn't the next step toward an absolute and certain conclusion. All that is certain at this point is at some point, and preferably by July 1st, we need a budget in place. The firefighters, the police, the EMS, the folks who are accepting marriage licenses and death certificates and birth certificates downstairs need to keep doing what they do. And if we can't keep funding those programs, we're going to be in a heap of hurting, not just here in Town Hall, but as a society. We need to keep things running. I'm very sympathetic to the concern that we not do something stupid. But I think the best way to avoid doing something hurtful or stupid is at this point to do as little as possible.
I might add that there is a group, including my office, looking into the issue of what happens if we don't have the answers in this case for South Kingstown, say, by April 27th. Can we hold off that final budget hearing? This particularly affects towns with financial town meetings because obviously we're not allowed to bring people together for a financial town meeting. So there may be some relief coming from the legal side on, hey, we're not quite ready by April 27 to set the budget for July 1. How do we kick that out another 30 days? So we're working on that. I don't have an answer for you tonight, but my gut tells me if we have to move it, we're going to move it.
Rob, I also think there's a great deal of confusion among folks that this budget is a bond vote, right? So I think we need to address that and make clear exactly what we're voting on tonight, the municipal budget for the next fiscal year.
So that's right, and I would back up one step further and say your vote tonight is on the preliminary, the conceptual budget for the next fiscal year. You're not voting on the final budget, you're voting on the conceptual budget for the next fiscal year. That conceptual budget will be the subject of a public hearing on the 15th of April, will be the subject of a public hearing on the 16th of April, will be the subject of petitions if filed by members of the public who have 25 signatures or more for changes and modification, and then will be voted on the 27th of April. So you've got lots of process between this conceptual budget and final adoption. And I think Mike's point is very well taken. Not only do you have the standard process between now and the final adoption, you're probably going to have additional process because, again, we haven't heard from municipal finance. We've been asking this question for better than a week. I know the governor's office has expressed an interest in getting something to the particularly communities with financial town meetings, but everybody is in the same boat. We've got deadlines that are built into charters. We've got deadlines that are built into the state statutes. We're going to need to work through those issues. The governor's office is working on that. The League of Cities is working on that. We just aren't in a place right now tonight where we've got relief from those deadlines yet.
I just want it to be reiterated that this is not connected to the school facilities plan, right? I think there's some misconception that somehow that this is part of it, of the preliminary budget approval. And it's not the school facilities plan.
So there's one place where there's a legitimate concern about that, and that is that the preliminary capital improvement plan did incorporate an $85 million bond request. And technically, this preliminary conceptual budget sort of assumes the debt level, assumes the debt service, but it's not an approval by any stretch of the imagination of a bond. It's not an approval of a bonding plan. It is just a conceptual budget for next fiscal year's operations at the schools and municipal programs, which does have a relationship, but it's a very loose relationship to an assumed out-year budget program, or out-year bonding program.
So one quick last thing, because we talked about conceptual, but I also feel like we have to be realistic. So the realistic thing is that it's going to change. And I know you want to keep it at the current for now, but again, I still feel that it's not realistic. I know it's conceptual at this time, and I know it can change either way. You know, if there's a huge stimulus, you know, maybe we get more money than we thought, as an example. But we don't know that, and I can see your point on the other side of not knowing. But at the same time, I think we have a lot of worried people in our community right now.
Yes, and not to be glib about this, but Warren Buffett famously said, "When others are panicking, buy." We need to not just do things because we're nervous. We need to do things at times like these because we've got the best information and we've done the best analysis of the information that we can do. We have not had the time to do an analysis. We don't need to have done an analysis tonight because we're not at a decision point.
I get it.
Tonight. If Zach and I can come back in 2 weeks and present the council with an overview of the fiscal, financial, jobs, the totality of the circumstances as best we understand them. We've begun to pull this information together. We've started putting together a sense of the new environment that we're in, but we're not there. We can't tell you exactly what's going to. Heck, we cannot tell you what the disease is going to be like 3 weeks from now. So it's a tough one to sort of tackle without all the information on it.
And again, I'm not being nervous about it. I'm just trying to be realistic about it.
I think it's important because of the way we're doing this meeting that we do start it on time.
Yes, I agree, Mike. So we have reached 7:30. That means I'll bang my gavel here and call this meeting of the South Kingstown Town Council to order. It is Monday, March 23rd. The time is 7:30 p.m. Our first order of business, as always, is the pledge to the flag. Please rise. Thank you. And will the clerk please take the roll?
Council President Collins.
Here.
Council Vice President DeCruz.
Here.
Councilwoman Kelso.
Here.
Councilman Veely.
Here.
Councilman McEntee.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you very much. Before we get into the agenda, I just want to encourage us all to speak directly into the microphones. We have these extraordinary circumstances here where the public is not allowed to be in the room with us. They are on a teleconference line, and in order for them to hear us, we'll need to be conscious of that. The teleconference line, if you wish to make public comments, is toll-free. It's 1-844-844-9200. Again, that's 1-844-844-9200 with an access code of 672353. 672-353. That information is available online, but of course, not everybody has equal access online. We are live streaming tonight, so hopefully people are tuning in there. Unfortunately, the cable access channel is closed, so we are not on cable tonight, but film of this meeting will be posted on the website. When we get to the public hearings, we'll state the rules again for making public comments. It may be a little convoluted, but we will get through it. All right, so item 4 on the agenda is the approval of minutes of previous meetings.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 4, approval of minutes of previous meetings for work sessions February 26th and March 9th, regular session March 9th of 2020, and the closed executive session held on March 9th, 2020.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. Item 5 is the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries as well. And brings us to item 6 on the agenda, licenses. 6A is a resolution granting a victualling license to Rachel's Cafe, doing business as Rachel's Cafe, of 36 South County Commons Way, Wakefield, Rhode Island. Application by Carlos Tavira, member of Dartmouth, Massachusetts. Is anybody on the line to speak to this license application? Wonderful. We're going to orient the microphone so we can hear you. All right, sir. Can you just state your name for the record? Try to speak loudly so we can catch it. Thank you. That's great. So tell us a little bit about Rachel's Cafe. Can you describe your business operations, hours of operations, a little bit about the fare that you'll be offering to customers? I'm sorry about that. Can you give us a description of your business, hours of operation, what you'll be offering to customers?
So right now we're doing breakfast and lunch, and basically we're serving breakfast and lunch. And as previous Rachel's Cafe, the previous owner, they had a liquor, beer and wine license, and we'd like to do the transfer and offer the same opportunity of doing beer and wine.
All right, and we'll get to the transfer of the liquor license later on when we have a public hearing. Any questions for Carlos?
No questions.
All right, do I hear a motion on 6A?
I'll make a motion to approve 6A.
Second.
So moved. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. All right, sir. Please just stay on the line for a little bit. I think we'll be getting to your public hearing shortly. Right now, in fact. 7A is a public hearing relative to an application for transfer of a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingstown in accordance with the general laws of 1956, as amended and as follows. Transfer of a Class B limited liquor license from Uptown Burger Bar, doing business as Rachel's Cafe, by Gregory Stevens, to Carlos M. Tavira of 36 South County Commons Way, for the dining and counter areas in accordance with a special use permit granted by the Zoning Board of Review on April 15, 2015, and further defined in a site plan on file in the town clerk's office. Said transfer is contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of good standing from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, filing of a certificate of insurance, evidenced required liability coverage, compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees and arrears to the town, the correction of any fire code violations, and the satisfaction of all claims. Sue, is there anything to offer into the record? All right, very good. Again, Carlos, if you have anything you'd like to say about this application for the transfer of the liquor license, I'll give you that opportunity now.
Not really.
All right. Any questions for Carlos? All right. At this time, then, this is a public hearing, so I have to make the floor open for public commentary. So is there anybody on the line who would like to speak on this issue? We probably haven't gotten any emails on it. All right. Hearing none, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close public hearing 7A.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. Do I hear a motion on 7A?
Motion to approve item 7A.
Second.
Before we go any further, the way 7A is written, we just need to make a modification because you're going to approve the granting of this license. However, it cannot be issued by the clerk's office as long as the governor's emergency orders are in place. So I'd like the motion to state that the license is granted, but it will not be issued by the clerk's office until such time as the governor's emergency declaration and orders relative to COVID-19 have been lifted.
So he will not have the ability to offer takeout beer and wine like other establishments currently?
So, Mike, the governor's order of yesterday actually modified her previous order allowing for takeout of beer and wine at facilities that are serving takeout food.
Right. So here's what we'll do. Consistent then, you will grant the license consistent with the order issued by the governor.
Thank you. So I'll amend my motion to make the comments that the solicitor has driven.
Second.
Good. We have a motion and a second. Any commentary? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. Congratulations and good luck, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to need it.
All right, and that brings us to public hearing 7B, a public hearing to consider a proposed amendment to the Town Code, Chapter 12, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions, Article 2, Unruly Gatherings, that would change the effective date of the ordinance to June 1st, 2020, to allow further study and recommendations for amendment, as shown on Exhibit 1 attached to the agenda. Do you want to give us any background on this, Rob?
So this public hearing is a result of a notice of public hearing that was published 2 weeks ago now. This is the interim solution to our concerns about the concerns that have been expressed about the unruly gathering ordinance. The ordinance was found to be deficient in a number of ways by folks who came to the public hearing, actually came to a public meeting after the public hearing was held 2 weeks prior to their attendance. But a large number of folks identified deficiencies. The council agreed with those and agreed at a public meeting to file a notice for public hearing to extend the deadline. This is the extension of that deadline to June 1st, and that'll give us the time to draft. In fact, we've got a draft. If this last week had not been crazy, you guys would have a draft. But we've got a draft ordinance that Mike's reviewed, that Amy Goins helped put together, that's ready to be considered. It changes the ordinance in its character to focus more on the activities as opposed to the gatherings. One of the main concerns people had was that the unruly gathering thing was more about the number of people and the fact that there was a group of people. The ordinance that's been drafted focuses on the underlying problem behaviors. This will allow us to consider that, allow the council to consider that, and potentially put that in place as an alternative to the previous ordinance.
Thank you. Any commentary up here at the council? All right, hearing none, is there anybody out there in the public listening who would like to comment on this ordinance, which would postpone the date of implementation of the unruly gatherings ordinance?
If I may comment.
Sure. Can you state your name for the record, please?
Sure. My name is David Flanders. I'm going to be talking later about the Conservation Commission. I just needed to reiterate the previous applicant's comments that I can hear no other voices other than Abel's. Everything is muted and garbled.
Yeah, I'm sorry, David. Unfortunately, the way we're trying to gather the sound from the room is not transferring well to this device here. I don't know what you would call this thing.
I just wanted to give you feedback.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I don't know if there's anything we can do.
Rob, do we have any of those extensions for it?
So my partner also called in. She's watching this, and she said that while the telephone was there in the center, she could hear all of us, but she couldn't hear the individual on the phone. When we moved the phone to Abel, she was able to hear the person calling in. So I think if we just, for tonight, move it back and forth. If someone calls in, we have to get it over to Abel. If not, we bring it back to the center.
So is it the microphone at the table?
So I think that we've got a couple of things. I think we've got an air gap between the speakers in the room and the Polycom. I think, David Flanders, if you can give us an acknowledgement, you should be hearing me at this point. Is that true? Maybe not.
I'm a little concerned about the procedure, right? We had some directives from the state on what was acceptable and what was not. And right now I'm feeling like what's happening is not acceptable. If folks couldn't participate, if we were not prepared, we were not supposed to be, right, engaging in this. Am I correct, Mike?
You are absolutely correct. Is David still on the phone or not?
I am.
David, can you hear us speaking at this point?
I can hear sound, but I cannot make out the actual words you're saying.
And can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, so what we will have to do is, as each person wants to speak, we'll either bring this phone to the table of the person, or we'll have them get up like I did and stand next to the speaker. You can hear now that we're good.
Rob, can you speak into that microphone?
So we will have both a speaker and a phone in the center.
I can hear sound.
Yeah, somebody else.
Out of the live stream. The live stream will have better audio.
Yes, but it's delayed. The time sequence is different.
It is. It's 15 seconds delayed, I've been informed. But again, if you can live with being 15 seconds behind the conversation, the audio is better.
I I got it. That's fine.
All right, thank you. Do we? Sorry, I couldn't catch that. All right, so we are in the midst. Thank you, David. We're in the midst of a public hearing on the unruly gatherings ordinance. Are there any other public comments regarding this ordinance? We are in the midst. All right. Hearing none, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
So moved. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. And do I hear a motion on 7B?
Motion to approve item 7B.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. That brings us to item 8 on the agenda, communications. 8A is an email dated March 6th, 2020 from Liz Gledhill concerning playtime at the polls. We received that and placed it on file, and it's been referred to the canvassing authority. What more would we like to do with it? And before I ask that, is there any, Liz, are you potentially on the phone? Is there anybody from Playtime at the Polls on the phone? Okay. Any discussion on this item? Do I hear a motion on it?
I'll make a motion to refer this to the town manager's decision and to use his discretion as to how to move forward on this item.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? I mean, it does seem like it's a worthwhile objective to have childcare available so people have better access to the polls. It sounds like the canvassing authority had some concerns about the logistics of making it happen. I'd be interested in seeing what Playtime at the Polls has in response to those concerns that have been raised. So I think that this is the beginning of a discussion, and hopefully we hear more.
I have a quick question regarding it. Is this more of being able to vote or being able to participate in other things at the polls?
Just voting, is
Because
what I'm told.
I've had some over rambunctious children, and I haven't missed a polling. I've brought them with me. Not the easiest thing in the world, but if the canvassing board, is recommending at this time that it's something they don't feel comfortable with, I would have to agree with them, and maybe we can work at doing something in the future, but maybe having them starting earlier, working on a solution.
All right. Any other comments? All right, very good. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. 8C is a resolution adopted March 9th, 2020 by the Charlestown Town Council in support of legislation pending in the General Assembly, H7755 and S2756, relating to criminal offenses, trespass, and vandalism with regard to citizens' rights to access the shore. It's been received and placed on file. What do we want to do with this one? Is there anybody on the line who wishes to represent this resolution that came to us from the Charlestown Town Council? All right. Any motion comments on this? Okay, so this is obviously in response to what happened with the trespassing arrest, which cost our town $25,000, I believe, in settlement fees. So this would try to clarify where the high tide line is, I believe. I don't know if that helps.
That's correct.
I'm a firm believer that this is a state issue, and it needs to be settled at the state level. So I think we should just place this resolution that they've sent us on file and await our representatives' actions.
Other thoughts?
I would agree with Deb on that. I think
Just have a second before we have discussion.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. This is just to place on file. Any further discussion?
I would agree with Deb. I think it's more of a state issue because the next thing you're going to get into is where does the property or town line start and end, et cetera.
If I could ask you to speak more directly into the microphone.
Sorry.
You really should hear reverberation. That's the only time folks are going to be able to hear you.
I was stating that this is more of a state issue, and I agree with Deb in regards to that.
Again, I agree that it's a state issue, but we are an interested party, as we can see by the fact that we've already had to pay money on this issue. So I'm okay with placing this on file because I think these resolutions, aren't always listened to. But if we do believe that there would be some benefit to the town of clarifying where the high tide line is, then it behooves us to pass a resolution indicating that.
Mike, are any of your clients getting on board with this?
This is the first council meeting that this resolution's coming up with. I do agree that this needs to be a legislative fix at the General Assembly because it not only affects, obviously, South Kingstown, but all the coastal communities. And what the legislation would do is set a 10-foot level for the high water mark so that it is easily measured. There's a number of amendments being considered, 10 feet north, where do you start that measuring from? So I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done on it, and I'm not sure it's going to be completed in this session, which has been greatly delayed.
Right.
I will make one note that in previous conversations with South Kingstown residents who own property on the shore, they're concerned that this type of approach constitutes a taking, that if that 10 feet is actually land that they've always treated as their own, the state would be coming in and taking their property, which is an interesting problem.
Right, because this is a constitutional issue, and the Assembly obviously cannot adopt something in contravention to the Constitution. So I think it's going to take some time, is my only point.
Very good. Any other thoughts? All right. We have a motion to place this on file. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. D is a resolution adopted March 9th, 2020 by the Charlestown Town Council in support of legislation pending in the General Assembly to establish an Ocean State Climate Adaptation and Resilience Fund. It's been received and placed on file. And what would we like to do with this one? Is there anybody on the line who to represent this resolution? Right.
This is legislation already pending, right, at the state level for this fund, I believe?
Yeah, this is actually a resolution that we passed last year, as you may recall.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Yes, both bills. There's a bill pending in both the House and the Senate.
I would be in favor of writing a letter in support of this legislation. This is really important to our state, but really important to South Kingstown in terms of sea level rise and resiliency.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Yes.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
So moved. Discussion.
So, as I understand it, there will be a fund developed?
Yes, it's I believe similarly structured to the oil spill mitigation fund that exists in the state. So it's like if it's the same way it was written in years past, it's a 5 cent per barrel of petroleum fee.
And how will the funds proposed to be used?
My suspicion is that they'll be overseen by the infrastructure bank. That's where the other funds that are developed this way are managed. Do you have more information, Rob?
Not a whole lot, but yes, my understanding is that the infrastructure bank would be the mechanism for distribution of these funds.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I just question how you solve this problem with money, but
Right.
it could be my lack of understanding.
I think one way to think of it for South Kingstown is, this is the type of funding that hopefully we would have access to for a project like the Matunic seawall or other resilience-related projects, certainly.
I do recall Middlebridge issues being part of the discussion last year, and there was some runoff, or you'll know much better than I will, the correct terms, but Middlebridge was of great concern, and that there was some funds that we needed to make available to help mitigate the rise in sea level there.
So, not to get too far, but the idea is that the fund would support the three sort of approaches to climate change: adaptation, retreat, and hardening, just making sure that the infrastructure. So the Matunic Beach seawall is very much just hardening your infrastructure to make sure that it can withstand a storm. The infrastructure bank has been involved in projects like grassland reseeding, making sure that you're restoring wetlands and helping folks move away from encroaching shoreline, just moving infrastructure and properties when that's appropriate.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Both of you.
Any other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That brings us to G, a letter from Diana Champa, Director of Literary Engagement, School 1, announcing that South Kingstown High School students Sierra Silversmith and Jack Holy were among 20 winners of the Write Rhode Island short story competition. We've received this communication. What more would we like to do with that?
I'll make a motion to place the communication on file and to send congratulations for the accomplishments of those students.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. H is a letter from David Palizzetti concerning the proposed school facilities plans and Stage 2 application to RIDE. That's been received and placed on file. Dave, are you on the line by any chance? All right. What would we like to do with this communication?
I'll make a motion that we refer this communication to the school building committee to consider as they progress in their plans moving toward a RIDE Stage 2 application.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion?
The Rec Commission has been invited, or representatives from the Rec Commission have been invited to the next building committee meeting. The unfortunate point at this point is that I don't think the next building committee meeting may or may not be held on April 1st. We might have to move it, so whenever our next meeting is, they'll have an invite to that meeting.
All right, we have a motion second. Any further commentary? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. And brings us to I, a letter dated March 5th, 2020 from Joan C. Hudson.
If I could interject, this is David Flanders again from the Conservation Commission. We were advised to have a special meeting prior to the April 1st building committee meeting, and I'm not sure that that's going to happen.
Dave, would you be able?
I think you should walk up to it.
Yes, I have time delay, sorry. The Conservation Commission was going to have a special meeting regarding this topic of the school building committee, and it looks as though we're not going to be able to have that meeting. So I would like to somehow allow feedback from the Conservation Commission on this issue, because we're concerned about the woodlands, we're concerned about the pond and that woodland habitat.
And I think, if I remember correctly, that you and I had spoken through email. The issue
Correct.
was making sure
Correct.
that you have your committee.
No, we have not met. I do not have consensus. I was only speaking on my own.
So,
Yeah.
from a legal standpoint, Mike, is there any way that they could have some sort of a meeting or an agreement via email or something like that?
So we could set up a meeting, and I'm thinking we'll have to talk about this later. It might need to be a Zoom-type meeting.
Yes.
Because everyone who's online, according to Amy, my partner up in Cumberland, is easily able to follow this, but everyone who's calling in on the conference call, it's not so easy. And so to conduct that kind of a meeting, or a planning board meeting, or a zoning board meeting, or our future meetings, we may want to look at something different. But the answer is yes, under the governor's order, we can set up a meeting. Yes.
So, David, did you hear that? We'll help.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
We'll help you set up a meeting.
I would advocate we talk through the planning department, Jay Parker, our facilitator, and set something like that up. That would be great.
That would be great. And I agree with Mike in terms of apps like Zoom.
I am so illiterate. I do not have Microsoft. I have no idea what Zoom is, but I'm sure we can work something out through Jay and the planning department.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
You. Letter from Joan C. Hudson posing questions regarding the potential effects of closing the high school and new construction at Curtis Corner Middle School. That's been received and placed on file. Joan, are you on the line? Okay. What would we like to do with this
I
communication?
think I'll make a motion to do something similar like we did with the last communication. There's similar concerns, so refer this to the school building committee as we did H.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. M is a letter dated March 11th, 2020 from Patricia Breslin, tendering her resignation from the Board of Commissioners of the South Kingstown Housing Authority, effective immediately. This has been received and placed on file. What more would we like to do with it?
So, one thing quickly, though, before next time I go up to that mic, they can't hear me on the streaming.
You need to be
Yeah,
close to the microphone.
it's a problem. We've got two different
Right.
audio systems, and again, I think the best solution is to speak into the microphone
And let it pick up.
and let it just pick up.
Okay. Thank you.
You have to be right on top of the mic, though.
Oh, so, back to the agenda. M. Item M, Patricia Breslin.
So I'll make a motion that we accept her letter of resignation and direct the staff to send her a letter thanking her for her many years of service to the town.
Second.
So moved. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. Letter N, very similar, a letter dated March 18th, 2020 from Maureen Egan, tendering her resignation from the Board of Commissioners of the South Kingstown Housing Authority, effective at 4 p.m. on March 19th, 2020. That has been received and placed on file. What more?
I'll make a motion that we place it on file and that we send a letter of thank you to Ms. Maureen Egan as former chair of the former chair of the Housing Authority. I apologize.
Second.
So moved. Hold on one second. Do we have someone on the line who would like to speak to this item? Okay. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Item R is an email dated March 17th, 2020 from Gene Lowell Jr. Concerning the location and feasibility of moving the emergency shelter in the South Kingstown High School on Columbia Street. Were it to close, that has been received and placed on file. What more would we like to do with this one? It was Gene on the phone. Okay.
I'll make a motion to place communication item R on file and refer it to, I think, the town manager and the school building committee, perhaps?
I think that makes sense.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion?
Would you add another department into there? Maybe the police department or someone of that nature, or is it okay just having the town manager?
As Director of Emergency Management here, I'll work with Mark Healy, who is my point of contact in the police department, to make sure he's plugged in. He actually alerted us to this on the staff side a while back.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further commentary? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. That brings us to item 9 on the agenda. This is comments from interested citizens. So if you have a general comment tonight and you're on the line, this is your opportunity to share it. This is the potential to become a free-for-all. One thing that's important is that you state your name for the record. Beyond that, I would ask that I'm going to go in alphabetical order and ask you, as we progress through the alphabet, if you hear your last name in those letters, to speak up at that point. So we'll start with people whose last names are A through D. So if your last name begins with a letter from A through D and you would like to make a comment, please share it now. All right, how about E through M? All right. How about I?
They're on the teleconference. Are they hearing?
So, if anyone didn't hear me before, we've reached the point in the meeting where we're taking public comments from interested citizens. This is your opportunity to share thoughts in general on matters of the town or the world at large. If you have something to say, we need you to state your name for the record. I ask people to try and keep this from being a free-for-all.
This is Raisa Moshe. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Raisa. Go ahead. You are on, Raisa. Can you hear us?
I'm sorry. This is Raisa Moshe. Can you hear me?
Yes.
If anyone
Go ahead.
didn't hear before, we've reached the point in the meeting where we're taking public comments.
Sorry, I've got you on two different things. So I just wanted to comment on the budget vote and the preliminary budget vote. I recall that when Rory asked and maybe Bryant asked superintendent about what maybe a 0 or 1 would look like, she said that she would need to go back and start over and start to look at that. So whether or not you vote on the preliminary budget as is this evening, I would think that it probably, I know that they have a lot going on in the school department, but I think that it would probably be a good idea to give some directive to the school administration to start looking at what a lower budget would look like.
All right. Very good. Thank you for your comment.
Okay. Thanks so much.
All right. So is there anybody out there, anybody else out there who would like to make a public comment? All right. I think that does it for comments from interested citizens. Oh, was there one more? There's a lag.
Do they understand they have to unmute?
Sorry, finger hit the wrong button there.
The truth is, with all the technology, the other meetings better.
We'll be right back on the phone soon, folks.
Welcome. This service is provided by Free.
Welcome to the Town of South Kingstown conference call line. Please wait and your meeting will begin shortly. While you wait, please take a moment to mute your telephone. Telephones should be kept on mute during the length of the meeting unless you are speaking. Thank you for your patience and please wait while the meeting begins.
The recording has started.
Hello?
Are you closed to public comment? Or,
No, we are.
No, they just can't hear us.
We are
They
still
can't hear us.
open to public comment. Please hold.
All I needed to do was shut it off. All right, so hopefully you can all hear me out there. I had not heard much public comment. If there are more folks who would like to make public commentary, please do. State your name for the record. Again, we're trying to avoid people talking over one another, so if your last name begins in the first half of the alphabet, A through M, go for it.
I couldn't. Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
All right. So,
This is Jocelyn Leska. I'm thinking you're hearing me, but I'm not really sure.
We can hear you.
Could you affirm that you're hearing me?
We hear you.
Okay. Well, we can't hear you. So I want to get it on the record, and this is all I'm going to say, and then I'm immediately going back on mute. We cannot hear the proceedings clearly tonight. We cannot participate comfortably and confidently in the conversation, and there are many people out here online who cannot follow this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to encourage people at home, from what we understand, the best audio quality is found by watching the live stream of people speaking into their mics here. We can hear you when you're speaking on the phone pretty clearly. We're putting you on the microphone so we can hear you. If you can listen to the live stream, I think that's the best way to hear the audio and not on the phone line. That's my understanding. So I don't know if that helps at all, but that's my suggestion.
Yes, and Amy just said that she heard her loud and clear. She was coming through on the conference room line loud and clear.
We also have a recording being made of the telephone call, so we also have a recording of the telephone conference call being made, so we will be able to review the recording.
Okay. So at this point, I would again ask if there is any other public commentary. Just anybody. If you're out there, you would like to share something, state your name for the record, please, and we'll make sure you get heard. All right. I think perhaps now we have exhausted public comments.
Hello?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
This is Roberta Mulholland calling in. I just want to say I've been cut off from this conference call, so that's been a problem. And I cannot understand, probably every third word is
unintelligible.
Kevin Sullivan?
All right.
Okay, I can hear Kevin Sullivan.
Are you still open for public comment?
Kevin, if you can hear me, Kevin, Roberta Mulholland
I just want to say, Abel, that can't hear on the phone, and there's feedback, and it's being cut off. So it's very difficult to listen, let alone participate. So thank you. I know you're trying hard. This is a tough time. Thank you very much for trying hard, but I wanted you to know that, and I'm going to hang up. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Roberta. Kevin Sullivan?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
I just want to say, April, that can't hear on the phone, and there's feedback, and it's being cut off. So it's very difficult to listen, let alone participate.
So,
Kevin, thank you. I know you're trying hard. This is a tough time. Thank you very much for trying hard, but I wanted you to know that, and I'm going to hang up. Thanks.
So Kevin.
Okay, Council, this is Kevin. Yes, this is Kevin Sullivan. Mr. Zarnetsky, you gave a thumbs up to indicate. Can you do that if you hear me now?
But I would suggest that everyone who is talking on the phone also turn down the volume on their on their computer.
Yeah. So, Kevin, just one thing. I know this is going to be delayed 15 seconds, so hopefully this gets through. We do hear you. We would ask people who want to make comments if they could mute the sound on their computers if they're watching the live stream while they're making comments. And also, if you're on the phone call and you don't want to make a comment, feel free to mute your phone line so we're not hearing a loop of conversations. Okay, go ahead.
I'm hoping you guys are still hearing me. And I've muted my live stream. So just in general, it's Kevin Sullivan. I don't know if the stenographer got there. Okay, but so the difficulty can probably be overcome if people are willing to switch between their muted telephone and the live stream for the combined audio, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. So I have just a brief, or hopefully brief, comment. It would be similar to the ones I've offered over the last couple of weeks regarding the school department budget and the effort to get the council to vote on placing the $85 million approximate bond on this November's ballot. So, Mr. Zarnetsky, to give me confidence, last thing I talked about was on the ballot. If that's the last thing you heard, could you just thumbs up again? And I guess there's a long delay here. So I'll keep going, assuming you've heard. In the agenda tonight, you got, looks to me like 15 to 16 emails regarding that subject, school budget and the capital bond. 9 of the emails were in favor, and 6 plus Mr. Pelosi's comprehensive email were arguing against placing the bond on the upcoming ballot, and all of the pro emails were obviously generated by people who had gotten the same message, and it was concern that not enough voters would come to a special election, and they need more voters in the regular election. Second concern is that we may be eligible for 50% ride reimbursement, so let's not lose the opportunity. That was really it. There was no other concern. So it was their desire to get more of the people at the polls, which is not a bad thing in a democracy, but I think the underlying reasons here are a little questionable with regard to social media campaigns and whatnot, and lack of information. The 6 short emails arguing against the bond had a common theme also. Incomplete information for the voters is incomplete is available, i.e. Complete information is unavailable. The consultant architect firm that has been working with the town has a deficient conceptual design. I put the word design in quotes. And their construction cost is a total swag. I don't know if you guys know what a swag is, but it's a scientific wild A guess. And they backed into that cost estimate to meet the town's budget. They, by their own admission, they said that the end of January in a meeting. So, again, I'm not going to go through everything that was written in the emails that you've read. I know you're putting them in the record. I've made these comments over the last couple of weeks, along with other concerned taxpayers. So I just have to reinforce that, you know, I think I used the term a pig in a poke before, and that's what it would be if the town taxpayers are forced to vote on this budget in November, not this budget, I'm sorry, this bond. And just in general, I'd like to see a pushback on the 2% PTT that was requested. So that's it for me. I'll sign off. And Mr. Zarnetsky, if you could, or somebody just give a hand-up wave to acknowledge that I know I'm off. And I'm muting my phone now.
Thank you, Kevin. Just in terms of one experiment, I want to check and make sure this microphone is right. Yes. If you can hear me, state your name for the record, please, and go ahead.
I'm not sure if it's my turn, but my name is Deb Bergner. I've been listening as best I can. I understand there's a delay. I've set up my computer so I can't, it's on pause. So I wanted to thank you for accepting the recent letters of concern about the shift from the high school over to Curtis Corner. I know a number of letters have come through, most recently David Flanders, and 2 from David Palazetti and 1 from Raisa Mosher, and you have very kindly forwarded them to the building committee. I wanted to let you know that when I went to the building committee on March 4th, those letters were mentioned. They just note them as received. There's no public comment or acknowledgement of any of the concerns addressed in the letters. So I wanted to point that out to you while you're referring another set of letters. They don't really seem to get acknowledged. And in that same meeting, it seemed to me that there was initially going to be some consideration of the concerns, but then the course, basically it came out that the school committee has voted on January 28th to move forward to Curtis Corner, and it's really not going to change its course from that. And that's where I have concerns when you start to see the number of people experts, engineers pointing out the level of concern and the losses that we'll have if we build at that site. It just seems to me there isn't going to be a pause. At a recent town council meeting, the town manager himself said we were going to have a visioning session for Curtis Corner because we had done one in parallel for the town council, and that doesn't seem to happen. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. So I think things that are presented to the public, they sound good or they sound reasonable, but then in reality, somebody points out at the building committee, we're going to just go ahead because the school committee voted on the 28th. So I just continue to have concerns that people raise concerns, and the train is just speeding down a path that we know might have concerns, here are going to have concerns, and it just doesn't stop. There's no way to pause. And even now, and I said at the last town council meeting, the economic effects in South Kingstown will be real. We already see things that have happened, and I see businesses who have laid off employees, people who are already filing, 5,000 filing on Friday. We just need to be very careful. We have always been well managed and well run, and I just feel like we are in a place where we need to proceed with extreme caution and care. And so even these letters reinforce that, yet there really is no public acknowledgement at the building committee meeting for any of those concerns. They don't get addressed, they don't get vetted, they don't get responded to. Over and over and over, red flags come forward, and yet nothing, there's no stopping, changing, pausing, evaluating any of it. So that's my concern. I'm going to turn off my mute now. Thank you.
Thanks, Viv. Is there anybody else on the phone who would like to offer a comment? All right. I think that perhaps exhausts the public comment. I'm still not sure that they're hearing what we're saying via that, but okay. That's good. Okay, great.
I'm sorry, just for those who might not have heard me while I was away from a microphone, we are getting texts that lots of folks are, in fact, hearing the meeting well. If you're not, please feel free to send me an email, and we'll try to remedy your particular problem. Our email address is townhall at South Kingstown townhall at southkingstown.ri. No, one more time. South Kingstown. No.
RI.com.
Crazy.
I think, right?
So one more time from the top. The email address, if you're having trouble hearing the meeting, is townhall.
I can hear you.
All right. So again, if you're having difficulty hearing and you need us...
We can't hear. You're not hearing anything.
Are you hearing anything now?
Yes, right. All right. So people, we're reconnecting to the teleconference again. Folks who are on the phone line are having a hard time hearing us as we speak. If they're, I mean, it's hard to get this across because people aren't doing both. But if
Access
folks
code or
on the
phone number you have dialed
teleconference line can talk to one another
like your
and encourage one another to listen via the live
Welcome to the town of South
that is the best way to hear the audio of this meeting.
While you wait, please take a moment to mute your telephone. Telephones should be kept on mute during the length of the meeting, unless you are speaking. Thank you for your patience, and please wait while the meeting begins.
The recording has started.
All right, we're just testing the phone connection.
Or maybe Kayla. Is Kayla moderating it? All right, very good. We're back online. And we're at item 10 in the agenda, boards, commissions, and committee report. Tonight is a presentation by a representative of the Conservation Commission. David, are you still there with us?
David Flanders?
15 seconds.
David Flanders is here.
Very good.
Do you hear me?
Yes, proceed.
I hear you, David. It's Roberta Minahaland.
Back online. And we're at item 10 in the agenda.
Right.
Commissions and committee report.
Right.
Tonight is a presentation by a representative of the Conservation Commission. David, are you still there with us?
I am indeed. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, I hear Rob's voice. I didn't hear Abel. Okay. Rob had prompted me to essentially give you an overview of what we had been doing over the last year. And basically, I'm just going to give you a 5-minute overview of our the work we've been doing, because it's pretty widespread. To start with, you all know that we are strictly an advisory commission. And in our history, we usually advise the planning board and the zoning board of review, usually regarding on-site wastewater systems, treatment systems. But we've also advised the town council, we've also advised the Department of Public Services when they ask for our opinion of our the work we've been doing, because it's pretty widespread. To start with, you all know that we are strictly an advisory commission. And in our history, we've advised... I'm hearing my own voice here. I don't know why that is. Usually regarding on-site wastewater systems, treatment systems. But we've also...
mute your live stream. Yes? Are you still there with us? David?
Can you hear me now?
You can be heard now, David.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, David, you can be heard in the room.
Hello? Can you hear me?
David, we can hear you in the room. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. But what happened was, after I started speaking, after about 15 seconds, I was hearing my own voice over what I had just said.
Correct. So we said to mute your live stream.
It might have been somebody else on the line, too.
Mute the computer, in other words.
Yes.
All right, I turned off the computer. There we go.
We can hear you absolutely fine.
Okay, great. So our regular business, most of the applications we receive are for on-site wastewater treatment systems, OWTS, where they fall inside of the 150-foot barrier, if you will, to buffer to a wetlands. And what happened was, after I started speaking, after about 15 seconds, I was hearing my own voice over what I had just said. I'm hearing myself again, oddly enough. And the other applications that we most frequently see, and this is over the last year or two, are for solar installation applications. Solar panel fields that are being put onto farmland and stuff. Other reviews we do are, and have done in the past, are adjustments to the tree ordinance. We're working on reviewing the open space acquisition policy. We have reviewed the ministerial road stewardship plan. We have a member on the Route 1 Stewardship Development Committee. We've reviewed the town seawall project. and we were active in the plastic reduction ordinance and working on amendments to that ordinance. One thing that is really encouraging about this commission and exciting to me, I've been on the commission for 11 years now, is that we can take on certain initiatives that some of our members might have as a particular thing that we want to work on. So we're working on and have completed an invasive species list that we would like to see distributed through the planning department, the technical review committee, the planning board, so that when a landscape architect comes with a plan, that we can review and make sure that those invasives are not listed in there, are not being planted, because we, are trying to build consensus along this issue. We've used URI, we've used state plans, and so we've come up with something that is going to work. We also have our own budget, which I think is about $800 at this point. And one thing we've been doing annually is sponsoring any member who wants to attend the Land and Water Conservation Summit to do so. And we've been sponsoring that. We've also sponsored tree plantings. We've also, in the last 2 years, sponsored this wonderful Save the Bay program of stormwater management workshops, where they go to our elementary school kids and to our third graders, and they have these wonderful models that they've made up, and the kids are just really engaged about all of this. And we figure the earlier this education starts, the better. And it's been very successful. So we've been very happy to use, our budget for that as well. And I just want to close with, having been on the commission for 11 years, and my wife having been on the commission for 3-4 years before that, this is one of the most exciting memberships we have. We have people who are from URI. We have on-site wastewater treatment people who are literally the best in the state. We have DEM expertise from Fish and Wildlife. We have our own environmental lawyer. We have arboricultural expertise. I'm a licensed arborist. And we have our newest member has been involved in environmental education. It is a fantastic group, and we all bring these different specialties to the table, and I think it's just one of the best commissions we've ever had. Are you still there?
Yes.
You're not there.
We are.
We are here, David.
Oh, good.
Thank you for your report. It's really heartwarming to hear all that. And sorry about the technical difficulties.
That's fine. I understand. It's a first thing. I understand. Yeah, not a problem.
All right. Well, I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments.
Any questions are welcome.
Abel, the only thing I would say to him, if you can, just tell him we appreciate his 11 years of service.
Brian offers his appreciation for all the service you've given to the town over the past 11 years. Thank you.
Oh, that's fine. No, it's a treat. It's my privilege.
All right. Well, I'll let you go then. Have a good night.
You too. And good luck.
All right.
Abel, we might want to make a recommendation that now that we're not taking any more comment, that maybe folks should live stream to be able to hear better, or if they can, and if not, we'll leave that on.
Sure.
So I think that is a smart recommendation. The better sound system is the live streaming system. I think they can hear us. We've tested this system. This wasn't the first time we tried this rodeo.
All right. I don't think we can turn that off, though, because we've advertised that as a...
That's correct.
Okay. So let's continue with the agenda, and we'll piece it together as we go along.
If I can just make one comment before we could move on to another agenda item, is I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that the census paperwork has come out. I received mine in the mail. This would be a great week while we're home to go online and fill out the census. It's really important that every resident checks in, that we get an accurate count. That's how our federal dollars come. That's how we, as a town, make a lot of our decisions on the census data. And just check your mailbox. It's not junk mail. Open it up, and it'll give you the access codes to go online and fill it out.
Thank you, Deb.
The only other thing I would add to that is, especially the times that we're in right now, the federal government uses those numbers when they're looking at how much help to send to certain places. And on top of it, we also have a congressional seat on the line, I believe, at this point. So it's imperative, if you want representation in Washington, and if you want to get resources that are owed to you based off of population, that you fill it out.
Agreed. So I forgot to open up the floor during comments from interested citizens. The council members here, is there any other commentary?
I guess we have to talk about it because people are going to ask about it, and we should. I think that nobody expected this particular COVID-19 to become such or have such a big impact on our lives. I do appreciate everyone that's taking the recommendations and trying to stay put. We know it's not easy, it's very difficult, but we truly believe that it's best to limit your social interaction at the present time to hopefully slow down this virus, and that our hope is that very soon we can lift it. But again, there are no guarantees, but we're doing everything we can as a town. We're following the state mandate in terms of all the recommendations that are coming down from the state. And one of the positive things is that I believe Rhode Island and even South Kingstown, that we were out in front of this as much as possible at the local level and at the state level.
Thanks, Brian. Other public comments from council members? All right. Town manager's report.
So no flag report tonight. If we had a flag report, it would probably just be one red flag, and COVID would be its name. I will start, though, my report on the current status of the town government by pointing out, sort of following up on Councilwoman Kelso's comments. If you know students from URI who do not live in the town and have a way of communicating with them about how to fill out their forms should be completed as if they were at the place they should be residing, which is their URI location. We're working with the University of Rhode Island to get a letter out to students, but because the students have been scattered to the four winds, we run the risk of having a miscount. And that is a major challenge for this community. So get word out. If you're a URI student, or you know a URI student who doesn't live in the community, let them know that the form should be completed as if they were still in South Kingstown. Beyond that ripple being caused by COVID-19, we are, up to our eyeballs in trying to adjust. As most of the members of the community know, we have closed many of our facilities. The rec center, the senior center, the libraries are all closed. Town hall is closed except by reservation. We have sent every employee that we can with a laptop to do work from a remote location, typically at their home. We are up and running. All of our employees are remaining productive. We've got a protocol in place that ensures that all of our employees are checking in with their supervisors on a daily basis, are explaining what they're up to, what their workload is, and addressing any concerns either on the flow of the work or needs to accomplish the work. I'm very confident that our employees are doing everything they can under these very difficult circumstances to ensure that the work of the municipality continues. We are still issuing birth certificates. We are still issuing death certificates. Land recordings are still being made. The Public Works employees are still filling potholes. The employees at the Recreation and Parks Department are still out maintaining our parks. The police are doing their job. EMS, despite very difficult circumstances, are doing their job. The municipality is up and running effectively. We are not missing a beat. No employee who shouldn't be in the building is in the building, because the safest way for them to continue to do their work is away from public spaces, but the work is being done. We have scrambled. We have loaded VPN connections onto laptops. Where we didn't have laptops, we've allowed employees to take their desktop computers off their desk here in Town Hall, other public buildings, and take those home. But the work is getting done. How long this is going to last, we don't know. The projections for how this plays out are across, a wide spectrum. But it isn't a particularly rosy future that anyone draws here. This is going to be a long, drawn-out event, and it's going to have major impacts on the way Town Hall operates for a significant period of time, and it's going to have long-lasting impacts on the community, on the economy, and on the country. This is a big event. We've not seen a pandemic of this character in the last 100 years. This is going to change a lot. It's already impacted people's pocketbooks significantly. It's already changed the ability of some people to meet their tax bills. We're getting lots of calls about whether or not there will be some sort of holiday or abatement. And that's something we're going to have to evaluate as we go. The bottom line on this event is we're in absolutely uncharted territory. Our folks are doing everything they can. I don't think that we've got any undue hardship or difficulty or problems that we cannot address at this point. We're doing the best we can under difficult circumstances, and we're prepared to continue doing what we have to do even as the circumstances become more difficult. If the predictions we're hearing from the governors of California and Massachusetts and New York are indicators of the future we're looking at, it's pretty grim. 40 to 80% of the population being infected by a disease with a virus that will have a significant fatality toll. It's a big deal. And the descriptions from people on the front lines of what this disease is doing to people's lungs, it's miserable. This is a serious problem. Town Hall has taken it very seriously. The municipal government has taken it very seriously. The health and well-being of the public are our first obligation, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that, yes, we'll issue marriage licenses, but we're not going to be the cause for public illness. So we're fine at this point. I think we're making the best progress, the best headway we can. I know that Craig Stanley and the EMS teams are, staunchly pursuing their life's work, and they feel comfortable that they're equipped to do what they have to do. But this is going to be a tough row to hoe. This is not going to be an easy problem. We sort of have looked at the last week and said, look at the hardship. We're not even, this isn't even to sort of use the Winston Churchill line, this isn't even the beginning this isn't even the end of the beginning. This is the beginning. This is the very start of the curve.
Rob, in addition to tax abatement potentially, or postponement, I've heard some people ask about our ability to stop foreclosures. I don't know if we have any authority to do something like that, but
so we don't. What we can do, and one of the questions we've received is, are we planning to have tax sales? We do typically do tax sales. We have about 20 some odd delinquent tax properties that would be the subject of a tax sale next month. Typically, that would be advertised. In fact, I think tomorrow is the deadline for advertising those. There are some reasons why we might choose to advertise a tax foreclosure or a tax sale. I'm sorry, it's not a foreclosure, a tax sale, because we're only selling the liens, we're not foreclosing on those liens. But we're evaluating that, and we'll make a final decision before the advertising deadline tomorrow. There's nothing in our inventory of tax delinquent properties that would be a permanent loss to the tax rolls or to the taxpayers, the other taxpayers who are not delinquent, except for one property. We have one property where, if we don't take action this year, other taxpayers will pay more than they should have. Just one property.
Any other questions?
Rob, I had a question. I had someone reach out to me regarding, for example, zoning board in this case, and their concern is that there's a particular property in town, I think it's the Feet First building, that's up for zoning review currently, and there's two sides to every potential zoning change. And in this case, these folks are not happy with the fact that the potential drive-through would go into a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And their concern is that they're feeling that their ability to present their case is not going to be as effective over, say, a conference call or to submit information to the zoning board in person.
Could we discuss this just in general and
Sure.
not discuss, you as a council cannot discuss an individual case, but we certainly can address
Sure.
anyone.
I apologize for that.
Concerns.
So, yes, I mean, obviously, when you change the character of public meetings, you change the character of the public meeting. The ability of people to use the strategies and tactics that have worked in one context may not, their ability to use those same tactics or strategies may not work in a different context. Our obligation is to make sure that applicants receive a fair hearing and that the public has an opportunity, a meaningful opportunity to participate before rights are determined. We are committed to doing that. Tonight's meeting is sort of a frustrating example of how difficult that can be when you can't all be in the same room. There are other technologies that we've been playing with for the last week. If this meeting had been scheduled 3 or 4 days later, we'd be using a different technology. We just didn't have license and the opportunity to do some other form or some other tool such as Zoom, given that we had to advertise a means to have this meeting on Thursday. So I'm confident that we will have tools that are not complete substitutes for a public meeting, but tools that will allow participants to show graphics, to show photographs, to show a copy of petitions, to express themselves visually on the screens to anyone in this room and to everyone else who's sitting in front of a laptop. We're getting to the point where we're going to be able to do effective public hearings. Everyone will have a meaningful opportunity to participate before the planning board, before the zoning board, and before the town council using the tools that are available and that we're acquiring the licenses to now. So I'm not concerned that people will not have a meaningful opportunity to participate in public hearings. I acknowledge that it will be different than the public hearings that they're used to.
Is there a possibility that the council will meet virtually from now on, or are we going to be meeting at the town council chambers?
So we've been talking about how to test some meeting tools for the town council. I'd like to talk to Mike about it tomorrow. But yes, we've got some tools that we'd like you to get on and experiment with, so long as we keep it at scheduling questions and form questions, and we're not doing public business. I think we may be able to figure out what works for the council what makes sense for the council. There are 3 or 4 platforms that I think are good tools. I'd like to get your feedback because you're going to be the users of them from your remote locations. The question simply becomes, what can I do about getting the 5 of you together that doesn't violate OMA by itself? And maybe the answer is we have to do a mock public meeting. We advertise it, we say you're getting together for the purpose of testing a tool, and anyone who wants to come on and watch with you gets to do that. We'll figure it out. But the answer is yes.
We are, today is the day that we leave our laptops, so maybe it's possible that IT could load a few different possibilities onto our laptops?
Short of violating license agreements, that may be possible, yes.
So following up on Brian's question, is it at this point just planning, zoning, and town council that are going to continue to meet, or are we planning on having any other advisory boards continue to meet?
So until we have a stable platform that we're very comfortable with, we're recommending that we just not have those advisory boards meeting. They're not essential. The order addresses meetings that are necessary. While the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee's work is important, it's not essential work at this point.
And just to follow up, just for people at home wondering why we need to continue to have the planning and the zoning board, I mean, you said we need to provide due process to applicants. There's even a state law that says we have a certain time frame, right?
That's correct. In the context of zoning and planning, there are actually statutory limits. So if someone files an application, the clock starts ticking, and if we don't act on it, it's automatically approved in some instances. So there are very specific statutory rights that are implicated by the filing of an application with the planning board or the filing of an application with the zoning board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Rob here?
If I may, I just want to end on an up note. I really am very confident that we're going to get through this. This is an amazing community, and it's an amazing group of people who work for the town of South Kingstown. Watching this group of people pull together, put materials and plans and processes and policies and procedures in place on the fly and overnight, just phenomenal work that gets done around here. In a place like this, with people like these, we can't help but succeed.
I agree.
Thank you all.
All right. So that brings us to item 12, appointments. We have suddenly some vacancies on the Housing Authority Board. We have interviewed a number of folks, but we should probably re-interview. What is the will of the council?
And I think we haven't interviewed some of the applicants.
Right. So if you want to reach out, okay, and maybe reach out to these people who have applied previously and see if they're still interested.
And I think the only other appointment, I'll make a resolution to reappoint Robert Cagnetta to the Zoning Board of Review.
Do I hear a second?
Okay.
Was that a second?
I'll make a second, but I had a question.
There's a motion and a second. Now is a good time for any questions.
Are there any, I guess one of the things I've been thinking about for a long time, and maybe this is the wrong time to do it, and I brought it up in the past, where I think we should, I couldn't tell you who that person is. So I think we should start, and I've said it before, when appointments come up, have people come up for not an interview, but more of a debrief, what's going well, how do, what are some of your concerns, issues, what can we do to help, just so we can make more well-informed decisions on who we're reappointing, because I think sometimes we reappoint people to commissions not knowing the whole story or who exactly they are. And again, it's not because of anything other than wanting to be well-informed and making good decisions, but at the same time, it's not fair to in my opinion, just reappoint people every single time, but it's also, we have to make sure that they know that we appreciate the work that they're doing at the same time. So it's kind of complex, but I do think that we should have a different system in place when it comes to vacancies or reappointments.
I appreciate that, Brian. I know you're trying to stay away from individuals, but I can tell you I've been to a number of zoning board meetings where Mr. Cagnetta has been a real asset to that board. There is also another vacancy on that board, and we actually have 2 alternates that we would typically move one up. I'm not prepared to do that yet, but that will create a vacancy for an alternate. I think in practice what you're talking about is a real good idea. It's not even a reassessment, it's sort of a re-interview to see what's working well and what's not, and so it's a great suggestion.
Robert, do we need some kind of an agenda item to put that in practice, or how would we? I happen to agree. I think when someone's term is up, we should look at all the candidates at that point and talk to everyone who's interested in filling a vacancy on a board. But I don't know procedurally how that would happen.
Procedurally, you're going to be changing a practice where you automatically sort of reappoint. So if you want to change that practice, we should put it as an agenda item, have a discussion, make sure you all agree, and then you can move forward from there.
I'd like to see that happen, a discussion on that item.
All right. Well, we've got a motion and a second just on this item to begin with. Any further commentary on this appointment?
I agree with Deb and Brian as well. So in order to move forward with that, would we have to deny that motion and then?
Not necessarily. You could approve this tonight and then set a policy going forward.
If we approve this tonight, we are putting him back on the zoning board of review.
That is correct. If you vote yes, yes.
So in that case, we would not be re-interviewing him or getting a debrief as to his perspective.
So if you want to put a new process in place first before you do this, then you should not vote to reappoint him.
When does the term expire? I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
This month, yeah.
And their next meeting would be when?
No, actually, I think they're an April meeting at this point.
And the term
I think
is
that's
for
right.
how long?
Three-year term.
Yeah, so we have time, I think. If they're not meeting again until end of April or
April 22nd. April 22nd is the next scheduled meeting. They're going to need to have 2 meetings in April because they missed their March meeting because of the COVID response. So they are short 1 meeting. They're going to have 2 meetings in April. That's just going to end up being their schedule.
I mean, I think that the policy change is good discussion to have. I'd be in favor of the idea. I guess if people have enough questions about Mr. Cagnetta's time on the board, it just seems we've gone to this point, and at the usual process that we've been following, he would be appointed tonight, and there was no warning that we were considering changing policies.
I understand that. It was something I just thought of right now, but it's also something that we've brought up in the past and we haven't done anything about.
So I would be in favor tonight of reappointing Mr. Cagnetta, right? And I agree with you, Abel. This is a sudden change, and which I don't like. So I would adhere to our current policy, which is to reappoint. But going forward, I would like to see that policy change.
Understood. All right, and I think everybody's in agreement on that. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of reappointing Rob Cagnetta to the Zoning Board of Review, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you. And we'll obviously pick up that discussion about the alternatives.
Can we get that on to the next meeting agenda?
Maybe we should make a agenda item out of this if we're going to, or I think.
It's a directive. It's fine. It'll be on the next agenda.
Okay. All right, very good. That brings us to new business. 13D is a resolution authorizing an award of contract to James J. Jeremiah and Associates of Providence, Rhode Island for a local limit study, wastewater engineering design and construction management services in an amount not to exceed $203,990, including a $20,000 contingency, using funding from the Capital Improvement Program budget and Wastewater Enterprise Fund unassigned net assets. Further described in a memo from the Public Services Director to the Town Manager dated March 17th, 2020.
Motion to approve item 13D.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. That brings us to 13E, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Gervais Ford of Littleton Road, Massachusetts, Ayer, Massachusetts, for the purchase of one 2020 Ford F-250 pickup truck with liftgate and plow in accordance with all bid specifications in an amount not to exceed $33,129, including trade-in allowance of $8,507 for the Recreation Department 2011 pickup, and for the purchase of one 2020 Ford F-250 pickup truck with plow in accordance with all bid specifications in an amount not to exceed $26,739, including trade-in allowance of $11,007 for the Wastewater Department 2010 pickup, as further described in a memo from the Park Superintendent and Wastewater Superintendent to the Town Manager dated March 3rd, 2020.
Motion to approve item 13E.
Second.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. That brings us to 13F, a resolution adopting the 2020-2021 Town Council preliminary budget. Rob, would you like to set the table here?
So as we discussed during the work session, Zach and I have spent a lot of time thinking about what we ought to do here, given all of the change that has happened in town and has happened in the state of Rhode Island and has happened, frankly, worldwide in the last few weeks. We are recommending tonight that the Town Council simply adopt the proposed budget preliminarily, because doing so does not commit the Town Council to continuing on that path, doesn't commit the Town Council to any particular decision as better information becomes available over the next few weeks. The procedure in South Kingstown is that a preliminary budget must be adopted by the Town Council on or before March 22nd, unless the 22nd falls on a Saturday or Sunday, in which case it happens on the next Monday. Today is that Monday. Today is the 23rd. In order to be compliant with the charter, there needs to be a preliminary budget adoption. Our recommendation is that the preliminary adoption be the budget that was proposed by the manager and staff, and that we simply look to gather all of the information we can. Zach and I are committed to coming back to the Town Council before the night of and before, as a preliminary before the public hearing on the 15th of April, and presenting to the Town Council everything that we know and everything we don't know about the state of state revenues, the state of federal revenues, the state of emergency assistance that may or may not be coming our way, the likely impact on the town taxpayers to respond to this economic crisis. We're going to know a lot more about the state of the conditions of unemployment, the conditions of taxpayers. We're receiving information from taxpayers on a daily basis. We're starting to gather information from the state and from the federal agencies. We're going to know a lot more on the night of the 15th. The Council's first public hearing on this budget would be the 15th. The second public hearing is scheduled for the 16th of April, and adoption of this budget is scheduled for April 27th. Now, the governor's office has received numerous requests, including requests from South Kingstown, for information about leniency on the budget deadlines. We have not heard back about what the state intends to do with regard to waiving deadlines. Our charter deadlines are one set of issues, but we're also driven by the need to publish information and to have the state municipal finance office review our proposed budgets as well. So there's some statutory state requirements as well as our charter requirements in the budget timeline. We expect to hear from the governor's office tomorrow on whether or not relief from deadlines is going to be forthcoming. So the schedule we've got right now would be a presentation of conditions known and unknown on the 15th, a public hearing on the 15th of April, a public hearing on the 16th of April, and adoption on the 27th of April. The council is free at any time up to the moment that the 5 of you vote to change the budget entirely. There's nothing about this procedure tonight that locks you into anything other than if we were to increase spending, which seems highly improbable given our current circumstances, we'd have to identify new revenue sources. Our problem is really not anyone contemplating figuring out how to spend more through public programs. In all likelihood, there's nothing that would be an impediment to the adjustments the council might want to make on or before the 27th. If the state lifts or waives or suggests changes in our timeline, we may, in fact, not even see adoption on the 27th. There is a charter requirement that the budget be passed, that the final budget be passed by May 1st. But if we're operating under a state executive order that says these timelines by the state are waived and municipalities are free to go beyond their own charters, then we may in fact see an opportunity to keep evaluating what's going on a little longer. In this circumstance, more information is way better. We just don't know what's going to happen in April and May and June and July right now. We just don't know. The longer we can wait before we make critical decisions, our suggestion, Zach's and mine, is that we do that. We should wait and look for the signs. We should figure out whether the state assistance is going to come our way, whether a federal assistance package is going to come our way. We're going to have to wait and see what the effects of this disease are on the community. This may have significant impacts on the community that we're not really either contemplating or really willing to contemplate. This is a very unstable set of circumstances, and our recommendation is hunker down, hold to what we've got, knowing full well that we may, and in all likelihood will, have to make significant adjustments between now and final adoption, whether that's on April 27th or later. Zach, is there anything you'd add to that?
The only thing I would add is we should wait for information, but keep in mind we'd still want to try to adopt before July. Going into the next fiscal year without a budget adoption can be done, but it creates, some hurdles. So I would, if we have enough information and we can move cautiously and get it passed, I would suggest that we try to do that before June 30th.
Very good.
I appreciate the town manager and Zach, your input on this, but I would have to respectively disagree, unfortunately. I think that we know that there's going to be a shift, and I think the sooner we start working on that, the better. So instead of waiting to see what is going to happen at the federal and state level, I think we can all agree that it's going to be less, just simply by thinking about things like restaurant and sales tax items. We don't know if this is going to create a shift in the way that people vacation. My hope is that it doesn't. I hope that people decide to stay close and vacation down in South County and add to our budgets. I think there are a lot of unknowns, and I think there's a lot of people out there, from everyday people to large companies, that are making sacrifices now, and I don't think that it's right for us to, even though it's a preliminary budget, I think we have to assume that it's going to be different. And what I would like to see, at least right now, is a freeze both on the municipal side and on the school side, and start working and seeing what those numbers would look like. And then we're still in the preliminary stage, and we can make adjustments as we need to that budget as we go forward.
So a couple of questions about that. First, when we say a freeze, are we contemplating sending town employees home? Is that the thought?
No. When I say freeze, I'm talking about what the budget was in 19 to 20.
So a zero increase budget.
Level funding it.
So that would, is your thought there forcing firings, basically, because we have contractual obligations that if we were to ignore would necessitate reduction in force at both the school and municipal level. We cannot have a zero increase and also retain the employees we have. We can do one or the other. We cannot do both.
I'm looking for everyone to be in this together and to make sacrifices where needed so that we protect as many jobs as we possibly can and that we all get through this together. That's what I'm looking for.
All right. Other comments? I mean, we can have general commentary on the agenda item, or we could have a motion. I will say, usually when we get to this point in the budget process, we look at the outside agencies, new requests for funding. I don't know if we want to take a look at any of those things now, or we want to wait for more information before we do those things, like April 15th, April 16th. But
so our recommendation on this, and it's only that, I mean, we're staff to the council. We will do whatever it is the council chooses to direct us to do. Our recommendation has been, given the uncertainty, there's no harm in not making those decisions and leaving the total allocation unassigned at this point. The funding is there. I believe that if we take the one request from, I'm going to miss it, the Village Trust.
Village Trust and the History Center.
Right. If we take the Village Trust application out, I think you're $3,000 shy of the total request. The total allotment in that category is sufficient to meet the requested need with minor adjustment. So our suggestion is that it's not necessary to do it right now, and when we have better clarity on the rest of the picture, it may be easier and better to do that.
So just for clarification's sake, the budget as we see it in front of us, this is so the folks that are listening and watching us can hear, the increase in the property tax transfer overall combined municipal and school is what?
The increase in the property tax rate.
So clarification on the question, the increase to the school, for the property tax transfer to the school?
I want the public to hear the combined effect of a property tax increase that we see in this budget as presented is what percent?
1.94%.
Thank you. Combined, the municipal and the school budget increase combined is 1.94.
Would drive a 1.94%
I think there's a great deal of confusion out there. There's a 2% increase proposed for the school department, and then people think it's an additional 1.94 for the municipal side. This is a combined property tax transfer increase of 1.94%, correct?
So there's a couple of different terms there. The property tax transfer is 2%. The property tax transfer is the authority that the council gives to the finance director to make monies from the general fund available to the schools. The school's actual operating expenses have only increased by about 0.75%. The property tax transfer increase is 2%, and the tax levy increase, Zach? The tax levy increase, not the tax rate increase.
So the tax levy increase, if you look at it in two ways, if you look at it without motor vehicle, would be 2.46%. When you with the motor vehicle, it's 1.77, 1.8.
So that's the total taxes
No,
we're
that's
taking.
the levy.
The total taxes
really
that we're
am speaking to property taxes, right? Not the motor vehicle side.
Right.
Actual real estate property taxes. I just want the real number to be very clear.
Right. So it's a complicated thing to always get your head around because these things all mean something different. The total tax levy will be 2.4. However, that includes new properties coming into the tax roll as well as existing property owners. The tax rate increase for property owners who paid taxes last year, their taxes next year would be 1.9. Am I still right on the floor?
No, it's actually, so the proposed rate increase that goes to from $14.45 per thousand to $14.68. That's for residential real estate. Commercial.
Speak to the mic.
All the property on the tax roll. That increase from $14.45 to $14.68 is a 1.6% increase. That's the percentage increase in the rate. In the levy, it is 2.46%.
So
I think folks are really concerned about the 1448 going to whatever number it is, right?
Proposed is 1468.
Okay. I think that's really important that we let people know what this translates to.
So if you paid your tax bill last year, if you paid taxes in South Kingstown last year, you'll pay, if this proposal were to go through to final, and again, we're only here tonight on the preliminary budget, but this increase would be 1.6% more than what you paid last year. That includes the schools, that includes municipality, that includes everything. That's debt service, that's operating for the schools, that's operating for the town, that's capital improvement in the coming fiscal year. So it's everything will be 1.6% more than it was last year.
If
that doesn't take into consideration the increase in its assessed value as a result of the revaluation that occurred.
So revaluation will not happen this year, so it does because your taxes last year will be based on the same value as it has this year. The values didn't change.
So if, maybe it's a little easier to understand, if your home was assessed at $350,000, you paid approximately $5,000 in taxes last year. The increase from $14.45 to $14.68 would be about $80 more for the year.
That's actually the easiest way to
Maybe that
summarize
is an easier way to think of it. So if you took your assessed value last year, do the math at whatever that number is per thousand times 1445, increase your value the same, use the 1468. If it was 350, I think you'd be right around $81 more a year.
Another way to say it, and I'm not trying to sell this, but to think about it in different ways is helpful. Your tax increase is less than $10 a month at this proposed rate.
Right, and just to even make the math simpler for folks, take your tax bill from last year. If you multiply it by 1.016, that'll be the new tax bill. 0.6. Yes. All right, so thank you for that. I think 1.6% is a very reasonable and responsible tax increase in normal times. Clearly, these are not normal times. More commentary on the preliminary budget.
So I'll make a few comments. So it shouldn't be a shock to anybody. I wasn't prepared to vote in favor of this before the pandemic that's hit our country. As I said in our last budget meeting, I was fairly comfortable, and after our presentation from the municipal side of the budget, municipal departments 2 weeks ago, I was even more comfortable that they have kept their increase in spending before this problem to very, very affordable levels. I was not comfortable with the increase in the school side of the budget. Since then, this thing is hit, and I've got to tell you, because I'm very close to the business community, that this has hit every level. So the business owner, the cook, the waiter, everybody is dealing with less money. So my point here is, and there are a lot of unknowns, this could be a relatively short-term thing. I think the recovery is still not a very short-term issue. But as we use the example that last year's tax bill was $5,000, under these conditions, I think these taxpayers are going to be challenged to pay last year's bill this year. So I appreciate all your work and I appreciate all your comments, but I feel strongly that we're looking at something now that is much more dramatic than anything we could have predicted. And again, even if it's a relatively short-lived issue, I think the recovery is going to be a while. Stimulus can have a big impact on how quickly we come out of it. But I still feel very strongly that the municipal side of the budget, our department heads have done a great job in control spending, and I don't feel that way on the school side.
What it comes down to is I think that nobody wants to, but I think we're all, from the business owner to the employee to the independent contractor to the self-employed, we're all going to have to tighten our belts for a little while to get through this. And I don't want to see anyone lose their job, so that's why I'm talking about tightening our belts. I think if I was looking at a particular job, and again, I know we have contractual obligations, but if we didn't, I wouldn't want my friend to be laid off. I would try to make more with less. You know what I mean? Where can we optimize? What can we do to make more with less? And that's what it comes down to for me, is that's what it's going to come down to for this whole situation. And this pandemic is, I think if you had to go back and look in history, I mean, granted, we've had other pandemics in the world, but this is different, and our economies are so much bigger at this point. And to steady a ship of this size, that people have lost a third of their value or more in their retirement accounts. They had plans for that money, and there are people that are probably paying their taxes on their house based off of fixed incomes. And this is going to affect those fixed incomes. And I'd love to give everyone the money that we need, but I also want to be responsible and fair and try to get through this all together.
Certainly, these are difficult times for everybody. The economy is certainly in turmoil, and the virus is affecting things vastly across all business sectors across the world, including that in South Kingstown. The ability of taxpayers to pay may be implicated, and if we have to consider tax abatement, we may have to. But only time will tell. We don't know the severity of or the duration of time for which these experiences will last, so time will tell. However, I do believe this is a time where government needs to be able to provide essential services to its residents. Certainly a lot of residents in town will be relying on services provided by the town, and I believe the importance of that is true and will be true in the coming months and coming weeks. I do have confidence in the town manager and the finance director that if we do, in fact, adopt this preliminary budget, that they will come back to us with findings of where we need to make adjustments. Only time will tell as to the severity and where we need to make changes. I think it's inevitable we will have to make changes. But like I said, in these tough times, I think it's important that government is properly funded to provide those essential services. And it is favorable that these increases are less than inflation. Although I don't know if that means much considering the economic times we're experiencing right now. But as of now, I am in favor of adopting this preliminary budget. I do expect adjustments to be presented to us at a future date, and I think we should proceed.
Thanks, Rory. And I would just like to add to that. I mean, I think it's hard to grasp the place of government in the economy, but it's really there to foster the conditions for economic growth. And so what you've seen through, the study of economics over the course of history, counter-cyclical spending by governments is what actually aids societies in financial distress to help grow them out of it. It seems like when governments tighten the belt, in addition to everybody else tightening their belts, that only exacerbates the problem. We have to be careful about cuts that we make, what they are, and if we make them, and when. I also think that it's important to notice as we're approaching this crisis, we have established a rainy day fund, and it's well capitalized, and it is. We put that money away for circumstances like this. So we need to be open to the possibility of using those funds that we've stored up for emergencies, for this emergency. So I just want to encourage us to think about that. I've been thinking about this preliminary budget a lot, I'm sure like all of us, and it just occurred to me, I'm like, well, why, it's just there. We always just assume it's there, and we're always giving money to it. And it occurred to me, and it shocked me when I thought of it. I'm like, oh, we actually have money for this. So I want us just to be thinking about that as we move ahead.
Abel, the only other thing, and I agree that the rainy day fund is there for a reason, but at the same time, we don't know how long this is going to last, and we don't have the ability to raise money like the federal government does, or to even print money. So at a certain point, regardless of what we want to do, we could run out of money potentially.
It's a valid point. I would just say we have enough in the rainy day fund, to cover a considerable amount, and I think we need to be inventive. That is not obviously the only solution, but it's good to know that we have tools in the toolbox as we approach this. So do I hear a motion on the preliminary budget?
I'll make a motion to approve 13F.
Second.
So moved. Further discussion? All right. All in favor of approving the preliminary budget as presented by the town manager, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
And by a vote of 3-2, that motion carries. And that brings us to the end of the agenda tonight. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Then that's unanimous. It is 9:37.